Africa has 54 countries and more than 1.4 billion people, and its economies differ from each other more than almost any other region on Earth. In this video, we go through the 12 largest, ranked, and for each one, you get the same scoreboard. Total output, population, what they sell to the world, and the single fact that defines them. You will find the continent's largest economy is not the one with the most people. You will find a country that dropped from first place to third without its economy shrinking at all. You will find a country with no oil that became Africa's biggest car exporter, another with no coastline that grew among the fastest in the world, and one that produces most of the cobalt in your phone while remaining among the poorest places on Earth. And running underneath all of it is a single pattern that decides who rises and who falls. Let's start at the top. Africa's largest economy by nominal output is South Africa, at around $444 billion. Not Nigeria, which has 4 times the population. South Africa is the most industrialist and financially developed economy on the continent, with the deepest capital market, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, a sophisticated banking sector, and the world's largest reserves of platinum, chromium, and manganese. It is the only African member of the G20, but its problems are severe and structural. Unemployment above 30%, the highest income inequality on Earth, with a Gini index of 63, and years of electricity shortages that forced rolling blackouts and directly suppressed growth. South Africa is the most developed economy in Africa and one of the slowest growing. Sophistication and dynamism are not the same thing. Egypt is Africa's second largest economy at around $400 billion, with a population above 110 million, which makes roughly 1 in 4 Arabs Egyptian. Its greatest asset is geography. The Suez Canal carries a very large share of global maritime trade and earns Egypt billions in fees every year in hard currency, without Egypt manufacturing anything. Add tourism built on assets no competitor can replicate, a large agricultural sector along the Nile, and remittances from Egyptians working across the Gulf. The weakness is financial. Egypt has carried heavy external debt, and after devaluation the pound lost roughly half its value, sending inflation into the mid-30s before falling back to around 14%. Enormous human and geographic assets, persistent difficulty financing them. Nigeria has around 230 million people, by far the most in Africa, and it used to be the continent's largest economy. Today it is third, at about $334 billion. What happened is one of the best lessons in macroeconomics you will find. Nigeria did not shrink. Its currency did. After years of defending an artificial exchange rate, Nigeria let the naira float, and it fell dramatically. Because nominal GDP is measured in dollars, the same Nigerian economy suddenly converted into far fewer of them. Measured by purchasing power instead, Nigeria remains one of Africa's 2 largest economies. So the ranking changed without the economy changing. Nigeria's real challenge is different. Oil is the overwhelming share of export earnings while employing very few people, and its young population is growing faster than jobs. Algeria is Africa's 4th largest economy at around $285 billion, and it is also the largest country in Africa by land area, bigger than all its neighbors. But well over 90% of what it sells abroad is oil and natural gas, which makes it one of the least diversified major economies anywhere. Its strategic position has become enormously valuable, because as Europe cut its dependence on Russian gas, Algeria became one of its most important alternative suppliers, sitting directly across the Mediterranean with pipelines already in place. That is genuine leverage. The weakness is structural and well understood inside Algeria. A very large state sector, heavy bureaucracy, and a private economy that struggles to grow, which means hydrocarbon revenue funds consumption and public employment rather than building the industries that would replace it. Morocco has almost no oil and almost no gas, and it has become one of Africa's genuine industrial success stories. It is now the largest exporter of cars in Africa, having overtaken South Africa, shipping vehicles to Europe in serious volume, and it has built an aerospace components industry alongside it. It holds by far the world's largest reserves of phosphates, which the entire planet needs for fertilizer, So Morocco has real leverage over global food production. And it invested early and heavily in renewable energy, including some of the largest solar installations on Earth. The strategy is deliberate. Being 3 hours from Europe by sea, with stable institutions and lower costs, Morocco positioned itself as Europe's nearest factory. Its main vulnerability is old. Agriculture still employs many Moroccans and depends on rainfall, so a drought year hits growth directly. Kenya is East Africa's economic hub, and unusually for the continent, its economy is built on services rather than resources. It has almost no oil and no significant minerals. What it has instead is Nairobi, the region's business and financial center, a strong agricultural export sector in tea, coffee, and cut flowers, where Kenya supplies a large share of Europe's roses, and a genuinely world-leading technology story. Kenya launched M-Pesa in 2007, letting people send money by basic mobile phone without a bank account. And adoption became so widespread that a very large share of the country's economic activity moves through it. Kenya effectively skipped the branch banking era entirely, and countries around the world now study it. Its weaknesses are heavy public debt and vulnerability to drought. Ethiopia is one of the most interesting development cases in Africa. It has around 130 million people, no oil, no significant mineral exports, and no coastline at all, having become landlocked when Eritrea gained independence. And for roughly a decade, it recorded some of the fastest growth rates in the world. The model was deliberately state-led, with the government borrowing heavily to build infrastructure, above all the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the largest hydroelectric project in Africa, plus railways, roads, and industrial parks aimed at attracting garment manufacturing. It is closer to the East Asian development playbook than to anything else on the continent. The costs have been heavy too, with a debt burden that required restructuring, a devastating internal conflict, and high inflation. Ambition on a scale few countries attempt. Côte d'Ivoire is the largest producer of cocoa on Earth, supplying a very large share of the beans behind the world's chocolate, and together with neighboring Ghana, the two countries dominate global supply. It has also been one of the fastest-growing economies in Africa for over a decade, and unlike many commodity exporters, it has been actively diversifying into cashews, rubber, palm oil, and increasingly into processing rather than just growing. And that distinction is the whole point. For most of its history, Côte d'Ivoire exported raw beans, and someone else captured the value of turning them into chocolate, which is where nearly all the profit sits. Moving up that chain is the single most important economic goal it has. Along with Ghana, it has also pushed for a floor price for farmers, an attempt to use market power the way oil producers do. Ghana is one of Africa's leading gold producers and the world's second-largest cocoa grower, and it also produces oil. On paper, that is an enviable combination of resources. Ghana is also widely regarded as one of Africa's more stable democracies, with peaceful transfers of power. And yet it went through a serious debt crisis, defaulting on external obligations and requiring an International Monetary Fund program and debt restructuring. What happened is a pattern worth recognizing, because it repeats across commodity exporters. When gold, cocoa, and oil prices are high, revenue flows in and governments borrow against the expectation that it continues. When prices turn, the revenue falls but the debt does not. Ghana's experience is the clearest recent reminder that resource wealth does not remove the need for fiscal discipline. If anything, it increases it, because the revenue is so volatile. The Democratic Republic of Congo produces roughly 70% of the world's cobalt, a metal essential to the batteries in electric vehicles, phones, and laptops. It is also Africa's largest copper producer, and a sustained mining boom has pushed it up the continental rankings. By any measure of what lies underground, the DRC is one of the richest countries on the planet, with an estimated mineral wealth in the trillions. And it remains one of the poorest countries in the world by income per person. That contradiction is the sharpest example of the resource curse anywhere. Decades of conflict, weak institutions, very limited infrastructure, and contested control of mining areas mean the value flows out as raw ore, with processing and profit captured elsewhere, overwhelmingly in China. Owning the resource and benefiting from it are entirely different things. Angola is one of Africa's largest oil producers, and oil has long been the overwhelming share of its exports and government revenue. That concentration made it one of the fastest-growing economies in the world during the oil boom years, and then one of the hardest hit when prices fell, producing years of recession, currency collapse, and heavy debt, much of it owed to China and repaid in oil. In 2024, Angola did something notable. It left OPEC after disputes over production quotas that it felt limited its ability to pump and sell as much as it needed. That decision tells you how dependent it remains. A country genuinely diversified would not need to fight over an oil quota. Angola is now trying to build agriculture and mining, and the Lobito rail corridor to move Congolese copper and cobalt to the Atlantic is its most promising project. So here's the picture. By nominal output, the order runs South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, and Algeria, then Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, and the rest. But measured by purchasing power instead of exchange rates, Nigeria and Egypt are Africa's largest economies. And that gap between the two measures is itself the story, because it is created by currency devaluation rather than by anything happening in factories. And look at the direction of travel. The oil economies, Nigeria, Algeria, and Angola, are losing ground. The diversified ones, Morocco with cars and phosphates, Kenya with services and technology, Côte d'Ivoire moving up the cocoa chain, are gaining it. The same pattern we saw in South America and the Arab world appears again here. Resources determine how rich you are today. Diversification determines whether you are still rich in 30 years. So which African economy do you back for 2040? Comment below. Let's put the continent together. By nominal output, South Africa leads at about $444 billion, then Egypt at $400 billion, Nigeria at $334 and Algeria at $285. Below that come Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, DR Congo, Angola and Tanzania, and the exact order shifts with exchange rates. So what actually explains Africa's economic map? Not resources, because the country with the most valuable minerals on the continent, DR Congo, is among the poorest on Earth, while Morocco, with essentially no oil, built factories and climbed. Not population, because Nigeria has by far the most people and is third. What separates them is the same thing we found in South America and in the Arab world. Whether the revenue gets invested or consumed. Whether institutions survive a change of government. Whether a country exports raw material or the finished product. Côte d'Ivoire grows the world's cocoa and captures almost none of chocolate's value. And moving up that chain is worth more to it than a higher cocoa price ever will be. That is the whole game. Resources determine how rich you are today. Diversification determines whether you are still rich in 30 years. So tell me, which African economy do you back for 2040 and why? Write it in the comments. I read every one. If this helped, share it with someone who follows this continent, and subscribe for more economics made simple. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. See you next time.